What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
I'm Jason.
and you are listening to Liquid Kernedge post Valentine's Day edition. Man, we are
May
on the road to spring break and Easter, my friend.
I was going to say, may the warm may the warm times begin.
Exactly. And by the time you get this podcast, either on opening day, which is Thursday, or maybe sometime in the weekend, baseball spring training is in full swing, which means the weather is beautiful. It's getting beautiful. It's time to be outside doing those things that we Arizonians love to do.
It is officially 75 degrees right now as we're recording this.
For you and for me, it is a balmy 67. So,
Ooh, okay. So we're both enjoying it. Nice. Okay.
it's a warm day, man. It's a warm day. So, how have you been, my friend? I haven't had a
I'm
chance
good.
to talk to you in a week.
I know. It was a nice weekend to be home too. We didn't go out like we used to. So we got to stay home and we enjoyed a nice Valentine's Day. And then we had a kind of an interesting event happen on Saturday. I bought tickets to go tour Taliesin West up in Scottsdale. And Taliesin
What is
West.
Taliesin West?
Okay. So are you familiar with the architect Frank Lloyd Wright?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Taliesin West was his basically winter home that he bought in Scottsdale back in the 30s. And he has a house. His main house in Wisconsin was Taliesin. And when he got really sick, he decided to relocate and have a winter house in Scottsdale called Taliesin West. And basically,
so he was the original snowbird.
Yeah, so he basically bought 600 acres in Scottsdale. And then what he did was he was teaching pupils how to be architects. And so he would move the school from Wisconsin to Arizona during the wintertime. And then part of their education was building his city or his campus where he lived, where they studied. And so it started in the 1930s and built over the next 10 years and built to basically what it is now, which is a beautiful house, college, auditorium. And so we did that tour on Saturday.
Wow. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was fun. Now Frank Lloyd Wright, what's weird about him or what's interesting about him is he died at the age of 92. And yet they said that he did 70% of his work after the age of 70.
Wow.
So he kept busy like right up till the very end. Like he didn't slow down or do anything. So
that blows my mind, man. I tell you what, that 70% of his work was done
after the age of 70. I guess he had marginal success and failures throughout his young life and into his late 60s. And then he invited the owner of Time magazine to his house, the Taliesin West house. And the owner of Time magazine put him on the cover. And from that moment on, and now he was in his 70s at that time in the late 30s. And from then till the end of his life, he basically did the majority of his work. He designed the Guggenheim. He's designed a bunch of other main famous buildings, houses, all in his late 70s. So when most people are retiring, right, he's doing the majority of his work.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane,
that is mind-blowing. First off, if I lived in my 70s, it had better be one sweet gig for me to be working like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know how, when we get older, we get a little more tired, want to take naps. This guy was sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night. That's how much his mind was working on architecture stuff.
Well, they do say the older you get, the less sleep you need.
Maybe. I don't know. But, most of the time I think old people, and they nap like 4 or 5 times a day. This guy was working harder in his 70s than he was in his 20s.
Oh my God, man. I can't even begin to picture that.
Yeah, exactly. It was an interesting tour. So I'm going to do a quick plug then on the podcast for anyone who ever comes down to Phoenix and wants to do something a little different or a little unique. Go to Taliesin West on the internet, and you can look up tours. It's a well worth it tour to go take a look at it.
See, now that is the main difference between you and I when it comes to going to a place like Phoenix to visit. while you are going to Taliesin West to look at the history of Frank Lloyd Wright, I might be going to the spring training museums or all the downtown museums, the history museum, the science museum, those things. If I'm going to go to a museum, otherwise I'm going to go cruise my old alma mater, Arizona State University, just to see how much that's changed over the years too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things. If you've seen everything and want to see something completely different, it's kind of a unique tour. But you're right. I mean, there's so many things to do in Phoenix, whether you're 7 or 77, that it doesn't really matter.
So that's a good way to segue into this. So when you go down to the Valley of the Sun, what do you like to do? Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Liquid Kernedge, and tell us your must-go-to spots for museums or just things to do with the family when you're in the Valley of the Sun. Our EP, Tom, also happens to live in Phoenix, Tempe more specifically. If you have any ideas of places he should go, maybe take a date, hit him up at liquid_EP on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah, that was perfect. Yeah. But anyways, on with the show.
On with the show. So you mentioned Frank Lloyd Wright, and that's a great segue into today's topic, because I have been trying to focus a lot more on my retirement program, on my retirement plan, being that as I am now a year older and 1 year closer to retirement. I'm trying to figure out, one, how soon I can get out and start enjoying it, and two, how much do I need to survive, and three, do I want to keep on working upon retirement? And I know what you're saying. What you're thinking to yourself is working when you're retired is almost an oxymoron. But what I mean is starting to do something else, not my main career, but something for just the insurance or to make up the extra income gap I might have to based on today's trends in the economy.
You know, it's an interesting dilemma now, because if you look back 50 years ago, the mortality of people past the age of 65 was not that much longer. So, you know, people didn't have to really worry too much. They didn't have to worry as much about, hey, once I get to 65, I'm going to live to be another, 30 years. So I need to have enough money to retire. So basically they made enough just to get them through the next 5 years, and then they would die. But nowadays it's totally different. I mean, it's very possible you could retire at 70, Scott, and still have 20-year career doing something.
Yeah. And Frank Lloyd Wright proved that. And then back then he defied all those odds. But by today's standards, 70 is basically the new 60.
Yeah.
And I think standard retirement ages anymore is 67 before you can qualify for Medicare, Medicaid. Is that what it is? Or
yeah,
is that
still I think 65? That's I think Noreen can retire at 67 for full. It's all based on the Social Security, right? So full Social Security for Noreen is 67. I believe that full Social Security for me and you is 70. And so what that means is that, if you want to get your full Social Security benefit, assuming that the fund is still there when we get to that age, they're saying that we could get a full benefit at 70.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's another 31 years of working for me.
Yeah, 31 years, right? But that's why it's so important, to do the investing up to then, so that you don't have to rely solely off of your Social Security. You can rely on other sources of income.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing now. It's I think everybody that gets to a certain point in their career starts putting into their retirement programs if they're offered one. And there's a lot of basic rules that people that have been there and done that will tell you. My particular organization has a matching program, I think of 5%. So when I started this thing 10 years ago, I put in 5% and they matched 5%. So I was essentially getting 10% of every paycheck put toward retirement. As the years have gone on, I've watched that fund and decided that every year on the 1st of February, I will increase my contribution by 1%, because I won't miss 1% every year. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And as of February 1st this year, I am now contributing on my own 11% to my retirement fund every paycheck of my paycheck, and my employer is sending another 5% in. So hopefully that speeds up the money making.
Well, it's funny because I read a story somewhere, and all these stories are debunked at some point on some level, but someone said that if you want to maintain kind of a normal lifestyle that you're currently used to, that the new number is like 1.6 million is what you would need to have to maintain your current lifestyle. Now, the reason why I say that is because the idea of 1.6 million seems like quite a bit. And, the majority of people are going to be like me. I'm not going to have 1.6 million by the time I retire. But that being said, it kind of goes into what you're talking about is, hey, just because I retire from a main career doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to work doing something else.
Absolutely. And that's what I got to thinking about is, all right, so my main job is in healthcare. It is in public relations, in marketing, and the charitable arm. And that can get me so far. But after a while, I'm going to get burnt out. And maybe I want to do something else, the next chapter of my professional career. And maybe I don't have to make as much because things have paid off and I can live to my lifestyle to a certain extent, and I can figure out whatever else I want to do, or maybe I can go chase that dream job I've always thought I wanted to go do just to see if I like it. But it's a much different nut you have to crack at that point because you know what your living expenses are, and by that time, you're used to living to a certain lifestyle, so you know what you have to make to maintain that lifestyle.
Well, I think about Noreen's parents. So Noreen's parents have basically over the course, I mean, they're in their late 80s, early 90s now, but their monthly income for the two of them is so much over what they spend in a month that they've run into the problem of we actually make more in retirement income than we could possibly spend. So they're continuing to save as if they were 30 years earlier, So, so for them, it kind of is that, it's important to save money, but you want to save so much that when you get to that point where I'm not even spending it anymore. So what am I doing with it? It's kind of a tough balance. And I think that go ahead.
Also, my grandpa had that same issue. He was a POW back in World War II and was exposed to different chemicals and whatnot. So he got a settlement and back pay from the government, and I want to say the mid 80s. So 40 years later. And by that point, my grandparents already had their living style figured out, how cheap they were living. And his government retirement got kicked up to a certain amount that they had no need for that extra money. So he just saved it for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you get to a certain age, your lifestyle is your lifestyle. You're not going to increase it because you can. You're used to spending on those things and you don't need any more.
So I think the distinction that would be made is there's going to be two paths, right? Because some people, unfortunately, are not going to have as much saved in retirement as they need. And so they're going to have to work for actually supplementing their income, right? And that path is going to be a little different. Like what kind of work do we do that basically helps to supplement my income because I don't make enough?
Yeah.
Versus
the people that
are working just for fun. Like if you did a job and it paid you minimum wage, you're not doing it for the income. You're doing it because you want to do that kind of work. That's a different.
Yeah, because you enjoy the people, you enjoy what you're doing, and you're getting out and you're being social. It gives you that purpose. And I think a lot of people miss out on that. It's why some die so young or why they volunteer. It's because they miss having that purpose to get up every day.
Well, you know about those people, and we've all heard the stories of the people, they retire at 65 and then 4 months later they're dead because they just didn't have that purpose to get up. And I think a lot of people are like, I didn't work my butt off to save all this money so I could die 4 months later.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I think my dad's been retired for 9 years now. And we thought when he retired that he would be back to work within maybe 6 months just because he couldn't sit at home and do anything. And here we are 9 years later. He gets up around 9. He putts around the house. He'll go play with his friends all day, and he's home in time for dinner. And that's the same thing just about every day. And then my mom retired 5 years ago. We thought the same thing. There's no way she can sit at home and do nothing. And she's found her own routines, man. And I'll tell you what, they're never going back to work now. They spent their lives working for the man, and now they're not working for anybody. You can't force them to either. So I'm very surprised by that because they don't need to work. But the attitude and the mentality they have of, I can do it if I want, but I don't need to, so I'm not gonna. I respect. But I think at some point they're going to get bored enough. They have to go find something to go do, whether it's volunteering or just a minimum wage job.
Have you thought about what kind of work you'd want to do if you were, like, for example, let's say you were 60 and you had enough money in the bank that really it's not that you need to, but you decide, I'm just done kind of doing the hospital thing. I want to try something different. Have you thought about things that you would want to fill your time with?
Oh yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I thought about that a lot, and I think about that all the time. I'm fascinated with the hospitality culinary world.
Oh yeah,
So
and I've known that for you're right. I've known that for
it's no secret. Anybody that's known me has known that for a long time. But I am not by any means a night owl anymore. I'm more of a morning person, just from the curse of my mom, who's the same way. I would love to have a chalkboard breakfast spot where the menu changes every day. You're open until you're out of food, and then you close up and you go do whatever the rest of the day. I would love to have a spot to go out and be able to do that. What money you make is what you make, and hey, man, no harm, no foul. But a place where people can go and gather, whether retired or tourists, and it's a fun spot on the weekends.
That's funny you say that, because how many people would do a business if they knew they didn't have to make any money, or they didn't, that making a profit wasn't necessarily the end of the goal. Breaking even would be fine. How many people would do something like what you're talking about, where they just do something that's strictly for the betterment of the community, or, a place for people to enjoy themselves and not feel like they're having to spend a lot of money to do it.
Yeah, to me, that would be such a fun thing for me to do. Something I can look forward to going to every day. And it's not that I don't enjoy my job now, but that idea of I can go out and be creative and don't have to answer to anybody but myself.
Yeah.
And that's a long time coming. And I can hear it in the back of my head, a lot of people saying, well, what are you waiting for? You can go do that now. And that's fine to say that, but I'm also a single income household that has a certain lifestyle that is not accustomed to me going out on my own, having to make my own money, relying on my culinary skills. It's a very different skill set. So I'm not ready to do that yet,
Well, and I think that, we've talked about it in a couple past podcasts, is everyone has their own sense of what comfort looks like. And so for you, that is not a comfortable set that you feel comfortable with, where there's other people that's like, oh, I would be doing that in a heartbeat. Why, work, blah, blah, blah. So I get it.
Yeah. And I have that number, man. I found the app for my retirement program, and it's on my phone, and I check it every couple of weeks. And I set my target retirement for 62 years old. That's my target retirement, and my accounts are set up to where I'm supposed to make money to where I'll hit a certain dollar amount at 62, and I have to make up the difference to maintain my current lifestyle. And it's significantly less for what I have to make than what I'm making now, which is nice. So it's incentive to keep pushing and keep putting money in there. But I don't feel like I'm compromising my current lifestyle now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I firmly believe, and I'm seeing this more and more as I get older. We think that we can't support, like you're saying, that 1% increase on your contribution. We think that 1%, oh man, that's going to be extra money. But then somehow we find a way to make it work, and then it's like, well, that wasn't that big of a hit at all. And then it incentivizes you. Hey, I'll do another 1%, and they'll do another 1%. I had a coworker who was trying to do catch up. She was in the last 10 years of her career, and she was taking every single pay raise. So whatever pay raise she got, she raised her contribution to her 401k by whatever her pay raise was. And at the end, she was at 24% of her salary.
Wow.
Now, I mean, but that was her thought was, hey, I'm living on whatever I'm making. So any raise is just going to be
it's bonus.
It's bonus. So
it's bonus.
I mean, I'm not losing any money, so I'm just going to put the money into savings. And at the end, like she said, she was putting in 24% of her income, which I thought, wow, that's great. Now,
wow,
like you said, so the crunch is not as bad. And I think also too, don't you think that when you get to that age, your expenses are lower?
Yeah, I mean, in theory,
your house will probably be sold, right? Your house will be sold. Yeah. Your car will be paid off. I mean, there's going to be certain things that you're not going to have payments on that you have payments on now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're going to, by that point, in theory, you're going to live where you want to live, and you'll have a little to no house payment. Your cars should be okay, but you should be able to support a car payment if needed. There's different avenues you have to look at. And I think that's why people talk to financial advisors to be able to, to be able to set up their future for just those situations.
I do think though that I would, because I've always thought, well, maybe I would work at like a Starbucks or something where I'm around young people and the people keep busy. But I'd have to be a place where at any point, if I start not liking it, I just give them the see you later alligator. You know, I want to be able to have that freedom that, hey, I don't need this job, so bye.
You know, maybe I'll work at like a tackle and bait, / deli bar. You know, those are all over Louisiana. I noticed when we were down there for vacation. It's not unusual to see a tackle and bait shop with a bar and a deli attached to it. Maybe I'll just go work there. And if they piss me off in the deli, I'll go work in the bait shop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. You
and
want to
vice
have
versa.
Flexibility. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Flexibility in my old age. Now, so you'd go work at like a Starbucks or a coffee shop or something like that?
I don't think so. I think that my retirement would not be working for a job for money. I think I'd be more along the lines of some of our friends who do like the volunteer work, or they work for a volunteer, like a nonprofit organization. I think in my retirement, that's what I would kind of gear more my time for. So unfortunately, I wouldn't. I'm hoping that I don't have to look for work to supplement. I'm hoping that I can do like work for a nonprofit that I really believe in, or maybe they help the community and I want to be involved in something like that.
Yeah, you know, I think the hardest part for me when I get to retirement, just because I can look at my personality now, and maybe if I mellow out, it won't be as big of a deal. But I'd have to go to a job field that I have no experience in, because if I went to a job field I'm very familiar with or I've dealt with, I would get really annoyed really quick and try to take the whole thing over to make sure it got run the right way. Even if I was volunteering or doing it as a side hustle part-time job, because you get so used to running certain, we'll say, nonprofits in a certain way. If you try to volunteer at someplace that is a nonprofit that you want to help, but they're not doing it the way you think you think they should because of your experience, that'll annoy you real quick.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. So we did the musical, the Beale Street Theater did the musical Peter Pan while I was there. And
you're a great Smee.
Yeah, I volunteered to act, right? That was my thing. That I wanted to act. I didn't get paid for it. I did it because it was going to help the theater grow monies. Noreen was the like production manager. So she did a lot of the like she did a silent auction to raise money for the theater, and she coordinated getting sponsors and people donating food. It was a lot of work, but it was right up her alley because she's an organizing type of person. Like, she likes to get all those pieces moving. And it resulted in extra money, extra ideas. And she got a kick out of it because she felt like she was contributing something. It didn't pay her, but she felt like she was contributing something.
She was giving back. Yeah.
Yeah. And so those are the kind of things that I think I would want to be in. Now, if for some reason I don't have any money saved up, and I needed some money, then I would have to do something that got me involved with people. Like I said, a Starbucks or a job that like let me interact with people. Because I like that would fuel my energy. I could see you being a consultant for some organization, like a startup or something, where they just want you to kind of bring fresh ideas, where you bring the fresh ideas, you might help them implement, but you don't have the pressure of, if you screw up, you're fired.
God, that's the dream.
I'm serious. Like, I could see you doing that. I could see you working for a group of like young, 20 somethings who are like, have this great idea for some social activist type of environment, but they're looking at ways of marketing themselves or getting their name out there or promoting themselves. And you're like, hey, I'll be your consultant, no problem, and just work with it.
And to me, that'd be a lot of fun. I mean, they could work that. They could come and have meetings with me in my bait shop / deli,
or your little food your food truck or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I will openly admit my first retirement plan is just to marry a doctor. So, future single lady doctors, if you're out there, if you want a almost middle-aged podcaster / activists to be your kept man. Yes, your kept man. I am the man for you potentially.
Okay.
Send your resumes to Liquid Kernedge at Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
And then your plan B is just save you're on your own, and then maybe run a food truck.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Well, you and Noreen have a nice place. I could live in your in-law quarters.
Oh,
That's
heck
fine.
yeah. Yeah. No, we definitely got room for you down here. But yeah, because we were talking. Do you remember when the lottery got to like $1.5 billion and it was massive, right? And we were thinking, oh, everyone always talks about what would you do if you won today? And I thought, oh man, we'd buy houses, we go travel, and then you do that for a year. Okay, now what are you going to do the rest of your life? And it was that thought process of how would I spend my retirement, and what kind of jobs would I look at doing, and and when you get past the initial, oh, I'm more money than God, most of us, and I think a majority of Americans, if they won a big lottery, don't necessarily stop working altogether, but they transition to, like you said, what I want to do, not I'm doing what I have to do because this is the job that pays my bills.
Yeah. And I would transition to something that I'm more of a passion project than a necessary project.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't take much. And we had a podcast of what would you tell your younger self to do if you knew then now what you know then. Or and that was, both of us said, hey man, 20 years can start now. It doesn't have to start at 22. It can start at 42, and you just do the same thing. You have 20 years anyways. So, for a lot of people, maybe this podcast is the impetus to get them started on the Scott Kern method, where you just do the 1% a year, and keep raising your 401k contribution or whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's the key to the whole message here today. It's, retirement is coming at some point for everybody, and it may be self-imposed that you've made enough to retire, or it might just become that because you got hurt and you have to retire, so you're living on disability or whatever else. But the bottom line is, find a way to save. Have some different income generators. There are so many different ways to save money now because of the internet. I use Acorns, I use Robinhood, I use my retirement plan, Edward Jones. I think I've got 4 or 5 places I rat hole money every paycheck or every week, just knowing that I won't miss it. So at some point, it's not a lot now, but at some point it adds up because I can't touch it very easily. So, all that money over a period of time will probably pay for a Starbucks or something. I don't know.
Maybe. And I think the other thing, like you brought up already, is when you get to retirement, you're not dead, right? You still got years left. What kind of things do you want to do to keep your mind going and keep your spirits up? And because I don't know, I do feel that the people who don't really have anything else, like my dad, for example, I mean, he stayed in his house pretty much every day and watched TV all day. Now, I'm not saying that contributed to his early demise, but it definitely had an impact. You got to keep your mind fresh. You got to interact with people, even as bad as when we get older, interacting with people are. You can do it in a fun way where you feel like you're contributing something, or you're making a little money and you're helping other people do something. So,
yeah. See, I don't think our EP Tom realizes it yet, though. But someday, when it's just him and I, and our parents are gone, we'll probably end up owning an animal shelter that we'll have to run on our retirement. We'll adopt pets out and take in the abused ones, and we'll give back to the community that way, and also save some lives. He just doesn't realize that yet.
Well, maybe Tom will say, I'm going to work for a brewery and just make beer and serve beer. I mean, it could be anything, right?
That's too many people for Tom to be around, but there's always a possibility. I believe the minute Tom goes to work for a brewery and he starts giving them notes, they won't understand, but you and I will understand the tough love he's trying to make them better with.
Yeah, well, we understand because we've endured it now, coming on 3 full years, starting year 4 in a couple months.
Exactly. So, hey, anything is possible.
You know what we're going to do in 25 years when we get to that point? We'll look back at, year 3 and say, man, we talked a lot about retirement. Are we doing it?
No.
Wow.
No, still probably not 25 years. The funny thing is that we'll still be able to look back and say, what was our best episode that's been downloaded? Deal Breakers.
Deal Breakers is still number 1.
Avril Lavigne and the Lizard People.
Yeah.
Those early hits.
Are we Facebook official? That was a big one. Actually, NFL, the first NFL one we did was a big one. That was a huge one.
Yeah, man, we got hit big time by those people in England that just downloaded all of our episodes. Quick after that,
they were probably learning what the NFL was all about.
Yeah, no, they probably hate the Cardinals and Rams, but hey, that's their problem.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's them and their warm ass beer.
Well, hey man, now I want to start working to get my money saved up so we can retire and have some fun.
Absolutely. Maybe our retirement jobs will be having this podcast be a nationwide radio show on satellite radio every day.
Oh, I love it.
Would that not be cool?
That would be awesome. I would do that for free too. I would do that for free we're doing it for free now, but I would do that for free even then. I would enjoy it.
I would do it for slightly above minimum wage.
There we go. Love it. Okay.
And we are willing to learn and adapt.
Deal.
That being said, Jason, take us home.
Well, hey, thanks everyone for listening. Go retire your dollars and put them aside so you can retire and have some fun. That was Scott. I am Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some Liquid Kernedge.